Yeah, I remember you showing me that.
It's pretty cool.
It doesn't make the noise that you like, though.
It does not.
Because it's not throwing
Invisible.
out that torch.
Yeah. Invisible and silent. Just gets the job done.
That's what she said.
It's what Elon wants government to be. Invisible and silent and just gets the job done. We're cutting everything that makes noise.
Not a bad thing.
Did you see his press conference today in the Oval?
I did not. Well, I saw he was there. Can you turn the fan? It's blowing that smoke right in my face.
Again.
Is it too hot? Or is it too cold? Perfect. Thank you.
He was there, with his kid, which is just, it's not that I don't expect him to be a family man, but it's just kind of cool. He takes his kid to work every day just about.
Really? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, Lil X was climbing all over him while he's trying to talk about, answer what Doge is doing about government waste and answer questions. He was getting a lot of questions about, well, how are you going to regulate or be objective since, SpaceX has DoD contracts? And he was like, well, honestly, if you look at every SpaceX contract with the government, you're going to see that it's very fair to the government. If you don't think so, come tell me. was kind of his answer, but also he would not be the ones actually looking into that. And he's also not even the one directly at SpaceX executing those contracts.
What is his role at SpaceX? Just the CFO?
He owns it.
Oh, okay.
He's not even the CEO or CFO or anything. I don't think. I can't just say that. But I believe he has, at all of those companies, other management as far as C-suite executives go to actually run the business.
Okay. Interesting. Didn't know that.
I believe.
I know I said last week that I was going to try to do my best to get over Luka. Brother, I'm not over it.
I was going to ask where you're at.
So
they threw you a curveball with him playing last night,
Okay, so I was like, after we recorded, and some people pointed out that I looked very sad. They're like, I didn't know you were such a fan. I was like, I'm not a loud fan, but I am a huge fan.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, okay, I'm getting hyped up for Anthony Davis. I'm like, all right, okay, I can see how this can be good. As a basketball mind, I'm like, okay. Put my feelings aside. Let's look at the X's and the O's. If you look at it from that perspective, okay, maybe I can start to get on board. Okay. Then watching the game, he's having a great game and he looks dominant. Midway through the third quarter, he goes down with a non-soft contact injury. And I'm like, oh man, just a kick in the gut. So I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And I'm watching last night prior to the Luka experience coming on the game after the Lakers. Gafford goes down with the sprained knee. And now today it comes out that he's probably going to be out at least 2 weeks. At least. That's the minimum. Then they're going to reeval. And then the last kick in the gut was to watch Luka come out in a Lakers jersey. I don't know. And then it just seems like every move Nico makes at this exact moment, like kicking the fans out of the game last night for having the Fire Nico posters.
Yes.
That's just a bad look.
Yeah, they're dumb. You can't. It's like I don't know.
It's like you regret the decision so bad.
I'm not a true fan, so I shouldn't comment on it, but that was a bad move.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look.
Yeah. It's petty.
And I'm all for petty. All right, I'm all for petty. We're going to hop right into this because I'm not the biggest Kendrick Lamar fan, but I am here for the pettiness of calling out Drake. I'm here for it. I don't know all the details of that. I follow it enough to be able to, if my kids are talking about it at school, to have at least a somewhat informed, it's somewhat of an informed opinion, but not enough to follow everything. They were telling me today or yesterday, I guess. No, today, because it was the first day I had him back, that Serena Williams was his ex, but she was also on the X of the Xbox controller.
Yeah.
Which I totally didn't know. I didn't catch that when I was watching it. So I'm here for it, though. I'm here for the pettiness.
Yeah, I liked it. I I knew the one song, the one big diss track song. I didn't know a single other song that he sang. My oldest daughter knows some of his music, is somewhat of a fan. My best friend at work is a huge, like, back in the day, coming up,
Old school.
Kendrick Lamar fan. So his take on the halftime show was he didn't do a lot of the classics that kind of got him there.
Right.
So that was his only complaint.
But didn't he do those 2 years ago?
I don't know.
Okay. I think he did a lot of the
when he did
classics
the
2 years
Compton?
ago. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that was the one who was Dre and Eminem and
I thought he did one
50.
on his own.
No, he was in
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
He was with Snoop and Dre and 50 and Eminem. He was in that one. He did one
Gotcha.
song there. And I think that's the only one he's been in
Yeah.
until this one.
I mean, there's a lot of imagery in
It was entertaining to me. Like, I didn't know
yeah.
it. And I know some of the, like, more, I would say, objective and, like, not just I hated it feedback, but the people are like, I didn't like it and here's why. Some of that feedback that I'm seeing and hearing is they're saying, hey, you should have someone doing the Super Bowl who the majority of America knows their music. I don't need that personally. Like, I knew the one diss track song. I didn't know any other song that he sang, but I still enjoyed watching it.
I just want to be entertained.
Yeah.
And I'm
What's your
not-
favorite one? Do you like have a hierarchy of halftime shows?
The
'Cause
Drake
I do if
or
you
the
don't.
the Dre one a couple years ago was up there.
That's my
The
third.
Prince one is the most memorable one.
Yeah, that's number one for me.
Because I knew of Prince, but I did not know how good of a performer he was.
Not only
No
that,
idea.
but just when he goes in that guitar solo on Purple Rain,
Yeah,
and it's raining.
and it's starting to rain,
in
right?
Miami, yes,
Yeah.
and the big sheets blowing up, and you see the rain.
Yeah,
like,
it was awesome.
that's number one for me. Number two is MJ, Michael Jackson's from quite some
93?
time. Quite some time ago, yeah. And then the 2 years ago at SoFi.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were complaining about it over the last couple of days, and I mean, they've all been the same to me. Not the same, but like, I'm entertained. I'm not like life changing. I liked Bruno Mars. We've talked about Bruno Mars. We're both fans of his, and I
Right.
liked his.
Yep.
Didn't blow me away, but it was like, okay, that was good. That was good. Now, I do very, very vividly remember Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Not for a good reason. It just wasn't good.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Phil Collins as a musician, but
But the worst ever halftime show was the Black Eyed Peas.
I agree.
That one right there, that was cringe.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Fergie didn't sound all in tune.
Horrible.
Yeah.
But the worst Fergie performance ever is the national anthem.
Yeah, the national anthem was really good this year,
Yeah,
and it had high expectations
I like John
because
Batiste, yeah.
because it,
But did you see
Chris
so he-
Stapleton did it last year or the year before?
Yes, last
Fantastic.
year.
Best of all time.
No, he did 2 years ago because it's also when the Chiefs and Eagles played.
Okay, wait, hold on. Whitney Houston does the best rendition of that of all time.
Whitney Houston. That wasn't a Super Bowl though, was it? I don't think it was.
No, it was just but still,
Yes.
you can't talk about the Star Spangled Banner being sang without mentioning that.
No, that's an iconic performance. Chris Stapleton was great 2 years ago. I liked that one a lot. But I like Jean Baptiste. He's a
Yeah.
I want to say this negatively. He's a real musician. He's a composer.
Yes.
He plays real music, and he's thought like, but I didn't actually bet on this, but I wanted to take the over because I knew he would do a lot of embellishments, not only with his voice, but also on the piano. I expected that. So the line was at 120.5.
Oh, he for sure went over.
No,
he went under.
120.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, can we talk about betting for just a minute? Can we just talk about it? Okay, so I didn't bet a ton of money on the game, but all of my parlays hit. All of them. It would have made me $600. Would you like to guess the only one that didn't hit? And I took the
Saquon.
over. Saquon freaking Barkley. All he had to do was score one touchdown.
Oh, you did the touchdown one? I did
Yes.
yards. He didn't hit his yards either. Either just rushing or rushing and receiving. It's like the Chiefs had a plan to contain Saquon. The Eagles defense had a plan to contain the Chiefs.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's because Jalen Hurts, who hasn't thrown a lot this year, was throwing the ball.
And he looked comfortable.
He did.
Most of the game.
And Mahomes did not. Mahomes
He
looked
did not.
rattled.
He looked very.
Of course, they were getting to him. Was it 7 sacks or something like
and
that?
they were at his feet the whole game.
Had a great fourth quarter.
Well,
I love how his third touchdown he scored was after the Gatorade shower on Sirianni.
well, then like I kind of took hesitation because I was like, hey, like
Nah,
if they get this, but if they had gotten the because it was 16 at that point, if they had gotten the onside
they got it
kick,
to 22, and if they would have gotten the onside kick after that,
it would have been
best case would have been 30
yeah.
to 40.
Yeah.
So
But still, I mean, crazier things have happened.
yes,
Okay, are you a big commercial fan?
I like watching them. But I will use that opportunity to go refill the nachos because I'm not going to miss the game and I'm not going to miss the halftime show. So, but I hate missing commercials too. So,
Does it seem like they've kind of fallen off?
they were not that good this year.
I think it's been that way for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. There's been, I mean, it's hard really to remember a good one in the last few years. Like, there's always that one or two that you talk about the next day.
Seal being a seal was pretty funny.
It
caught me off guard.
But it was stupid funny.
It was stupid funny, but it caught me off guard.
That's probably the one that's probably going to be the most memorable. Eugene Levy's eyebrows flying through the air. That's pretty funny.
Well, and then
I can't remember what the ad was for.
no, the mustache. Pringles. It was Pringles mustache.
Okay.
And then the Pringles was the mustache
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
where James Harden didn't have a mustache. That was pretty funny. But I mean, it wasn't like there were none that just like stuck out like the Budweiser ones of old
Oh, yeah.
or the Dilly Dilly.
Right.
Also Bud Light. I didn't even really remember. I mean, there was a Clydesdale one, but nothing that stuck out.
But it was a very generic Clydesdale one. Oh, a keg falls off the wagon and the horse jumps out of his stall and uses his foot to roll it to the bar. Like, okay. Clydesdales have had some. They say, I didn't see this one. I need to look it up. They say the Harrison Ford Jeep commercial was good. I didn't see that one. I was refilling some snacks, but they say that one was good. I should rewatch that. But yeah, nothing like Seal being a seal was funny. The mustache and the eyebrows was kind of stupid funny. Nothing really. I think you're going to remember a few years from now.
I don't. It was kind of all the same to me. I was kind of looking forward to Elon Musk's commercials.
I didn't see one.
There wasn't one. Well, there was a Starlink commercial for T-Mobile because
Okay.
T-Mobile is joining forces with Starlink.
I
I was expecting something grandioso, and I didn't get grandioso, so I was a little disappointed.
No.
But, good game, entertaining for the most part. I know you're a Chiefs fan, so I'm sorry. But, I mean, now we're on to draft talk,
Yeah.
which I hate. I hate draft talk. God, I hate draft talk. Because it's like, these guys may or may not even hit, so it's like, what are you going to do?
They may not even hit, and I just don't have. And the Cowboys have done okay drafting, but I don't have a lot of faith in this team and their draft ability. But Will McClay's good, so maybe they'll get somebody. But it's like you need so much. Maybe that's what I'm discouraged about. Is you need so much. Like, what are you going to go get?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to prioritize? It's almost like they really could approach the draft as just best player on the board and just take whoever's available whenever your pick comes up. Because they need just about – you don't really need a receiver, okay? So you're all out there. You're pretty good at, like, safety. But everywhere else, like, do you really have a linebacker?
No.
There's trade talk about Micah. You need line.
Well,
You don't have a running back.
You don't know if Zach Martin's going to retire or not.
He's probably going to retire.
But he's apparently a free agent. I guess I didn't realize that. I was listening to that on the way here. I don't know. I'm apathetic, I think is the right word, towards them.
Yeah.
I don't really care one way or the other. I'll turn it on and watch it. And until they can get past the first, second, third round, I'm okay.
I forget when
Great.
it was. It's the year we drafted Leighton Vander Esch. I went to it because it was here at Jerry World.
Okay.
So I got through a company, I got tickets to be able to go. So it was entertaining.
I bet that was fun. I would do that. Like, I don't know that I would travel to it,
And
but I would do it.
It was on, opening day. Like, it was the Thursday night.
Nice.
And we weren't far from the stage. We were sitting kind of in the corner of the stadium, and they had this stage kind of set up on that end of the stadium.
Nice.
So you could see everybody, and we booed Roger Goodell because the year before that was the Zeke 6-game suspension for flashing the girl in the Mardi Gras parade or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So he gets booed every time anyway, but that was the reason.
Well, now it's a bit.
Yeah, now
it's a bit. Now
but
it's a
I believe it started then.
Okay.
I think that's when it was probably really getting its start.
So we're making some statements tonight with our shirts.
Yeah.
Did you see it changed? I sent you
I
the
did. Yeah.
yesterday is when I noticed that it changed to the Gulf of America, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I guess maybe I don't care.
I don't
care, but it's hilarious.
I said that the first time, like, okay, he's going to do some crazy stuff. I thought it was funny. I mean, honestly, it's one of the few times I'll say I
Can
had
I
the
turn
same.
my ears down just a little?
Oh yeah, I forgot to plug mine in.
Is it this one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's a little better.
I had the same reaction as Hillary Clinton. Yeah. That's probably the only time I'm ever going to say that.
Yeah, I don't know that we're.
But when
ever
he
gonna have
announced
that
it, the
conversation
camera
again.
was on her and she chuckled a little bit.
Yeah.
So did I.
Well, and two, like it's one of those outlandish things that he says that you don't think he's actually going to do, and then when he does it, you're not really shocked. You're just like, oh well, okay. Didn't think you were actually going to do it, but
It goes back to my old saying: Trump doing Trump things,
this is okay.
Biden doing Biden things, Democrats doing Democrat things. You know, I'm not surprised by any of it.
Yeah, and it is hilarious because it's a bit, and I'm obviously supporting my
Yeah,
peeps.
I like that. Is that a new shirt or have you had it?
A student gave it to my wife, I think,
Okay.
and so it was one of those that's just laying around, and I was like, what am I going to wear tonight? And so here we are.
Like a statement with our clothing. I'm wearing the Gulf of America shirt.
And I'm wearing what does it say? Don't mess with teachers.
Don't mess with teachers, and it's the Don't Mess with Texas font.
Texas font. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If you've never been in the state of Texas, it used to be more prevalent. Like it was on all the trash cans, red, white, and blue, and the Don't Mess with Texas logo. They used to run commercials all the time. I haven't seen any of those.
I haven't seen one in a
I guess we
long
stopped
time.
littering. Maybe it's not a big deal, but it was an anti-littering.
no, we just have so much construction now that it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. We're just tearing it up.
Every road's under construction anyway. But yeah, it was an anti-littering campaign for the non-Texans out there.
So I want to also. This is kind of housekeeping things that we're talking about right now, but I'm shocked at where people are listening. I don't know if you get that report.
Yes. Yeah, I like looking at it.
So it's kind of interesting, kind of how so we post our stuff on Facebook, and so every once in a while we're a part of this like Podcasters of the UK page, and so I'll share something on there, and you can always tell when I do because it's like there's a subscriber or a download in London or a download in Manchester, and then I saw one there was in Ireland, and I'm like, okay, hitting the global market now.
That's right. I'm sure they are very interested in American politics.
Well, and two guys in Texas too. It's probably I don't know what they think we're gonna look like or whatever, but it's just funny.
Yeah.
So
you rode your horse here, didn't you?
Yeah. In my 10-gallon cowboy hat.
Yeah.
While I was pushing steers along the side of the road.
We went to high school with people who rode their horses
We
to
did.
school. So
We did. I actually
And
ran
drove tractors to
I ran
school.
into the guy that drove the tractor. His kids go to the district that I work at.
Really?
Yes. Did not. I knew they went there, but like I hadn't run into him again. He was like, "Hey, you remember?" I was like, "Yes."
were
Yes,
you
I
around
do.
when we had the pull off in the school parking lot with our trucks?
No.
We got the idiotic idea we'd chain our trucks together and see which one is stronger.
That was stupid.
Yeah, it was. I blew out and sealed my differential.
Oh, no.
I mean, which isn't a really hard fix, but I learned my lesson.
I was never a part of that. Never. That
And
was
that was
never
back
my.
in the day whenever we did stuff and never told our parents, which, I mean, that hasn't really changed, but I feel like it's different stuff these days because I remember getting in trouble for that. It was after a Friday night football game, so I'd gotten home. I'm tired, worn out, and it was the next morning. So it was like Saturday morning. My dad's like, "Come out here and look at your truck." And I'm like, "All right." My first truck was an 85 Chevy short wide dually with a 6.2 diesel. I wish I never got rid of
Was it white?
it. Red.
Red.
Yeah. But it was a short wide.
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember it.
Single cab, short bed. By the time we got to high school, I probably had a different truck.
I think you had a blue one. Did you have a blue one?
Yeah, and then my last truck was I had a Ford Lightning, a red Ford Lightning.
Okay.
But my senior year. But this first truck, I wish I never would have got rid of it, but I got tired of fixing it. But anyway, long story short, he brought me outside. He said, I want you to look at your truck, and his leaking differential fluid down there. And I was, which, for that truck, that's one of the reasons I got tired of it and sold it, was just like, that's just any old day when it's leaking something. And so I was like, what? And he's like, well, what have you been doing? And I'm like, nothing. Like, it's a new leak we're going to fix, like, that's what we do. And he said, who you been pulling? And I was like, oh, okay. Who talked to you? And it was, you wouldn't know her, but my first ever girlfriend, it was her mom. They were sitting next to my parents in the stands of the football game and told on me. So
you have to tell me afterwards.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Clint and I went to high school together. He was a little bit older than me, just a wee bit older.
Couple years.
Literally,
we're not exaggerating. It was a couple years.
And
don't make me out to be that old.
I don't think you're that much older than me, because I got held back. That's why.
That's why.
Because you were a junior when I was a freshman, so we're a year apart, technically speaking. So that's a trip down memory lane. Whew. I would not go back in a heartbeat. No way I would go back.
No.
When I hear people say that, I'm like, I kind of feel sorry for you.
I've got next year, my 25 year coming up. We'll see if I go to that one.
I haven't been to one
yet.
Haven't been to one.
I was going to go to my 10 year and decided against it at the last minute and saw the pictures on Facebook afterwards. And the same people you would expect to be doing the same stuff they were doing in high school. Yeah. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, dodge the bullet there. Our 20, maybe we didn't have one for our 20 year because that would be 2021 and we were still maybe COVIDing and things. I feel like they still got together, but it was a smaller gathering. So I got 25 coming up next year. Oh, we'll see. Maybe I'll get nostalgic.
I say I'll go, but there's no way I'm going. No way. Anybody that I want to talk to, I've already talked to.
Exactly.
And anybody that I want to see, I see on Facebook. So yeah. I mean, that's kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of when you get to like 30, maybe 40,
right?
Maybe I'll go. But I'm not going. I'm not going.
No.
Sorry, guys. If any of you listen, I'm not gonna be there. You can just see me here. That's where you can get me. All right, where do you want to jump in at? There's a lot of things that happen, but nothing that's huge.
No, I think Tulsi gets confirmed tonight. That vote's supposed to happen after midnight. I don't know what the significance of that is. Maybe they're just busy, but they said the Tulsi vote will be just after midnight tonight. So just after 11 p.m. our time. We're recording on Tuesday, by the way. We normally record on Mondays. So today's the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
So that vote's supposed to happen tonight.
I bet it has to do with filibusters.
When they run out of time.
Yeah. I bet that. I have not looked at it, but if I was guessing, that's what I would have to say. It probably has something to do with filibusters. Because they were filibustering Patel.
Yeah, just not letting it get to a vote. And we still don't know about RFK, so we'll see how that goes. But I'll say that, I feel like between the election and the inauguration, people even on the left and the Democrats were, hey, this is our new president and we don't agree with everything, but it seemed a little more cordial. I mean, that's pretty much out the window now. With what he's been doing, which is what he was elected to do. There's people are losing their minds over this Doge stuff. Like, I expect, and followed politics for a long time. So I've seen pushback. I've seen people speak out against things. I've seen people say crazy things and do the press conferences and the sound bites. But like Schumer and Elizabeth Warren and some of these folks are flat out losing their minds. I saw a funny, I'll let you talk about it, but I saw a funny reel, and I don't know if this was accurate, but the setup is, this is a girl in New York. She looks 20 something and she's an independent. She didn't vote for Trump, and she's just sitting in her car posting a video, and she says the way the Democrats are acting about Doge is like when a girl takes her boyfriend's phone and goes hides in the bathroom and starts confronting him with all the things that she's finding. And he just keeps saying how she invaded his privacy, like not actually addressing the things that's being found. He's just saying mad because his privacy got invaded. And I was like, that's an interesting take and completely accurate. But yeah, they're losing their minds, like more than I've seen with some other things.
I think that it goes back to what I said last week. When you shine a light on a bunch of cockroaches, they scatter and they just panic.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep saying I'm not going to be shocked by what they find, and yet here I am getting completely blown away by something that they find. And it's just like, no wonder we're in $39 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, too, what you said before, Trump doing Trump things. I can't. Every time he does something, he's been saying he was going to do this. Even putting Musk, even RFK, Tulsi, all of the guys, all of them. And that's where I'm kind of confused. Is it we've gotten so far away from campaign promises just being like, meh, if we do it, we do it. If we don't, we don't.
Right.
Except for he literally said, we're going to drain the swamp. Now, he said that last time.
Right.
But to be perfectly fair to him, and he admitted this in several interviews, that he was not prepared for what he was going into.
And he didn't have the right people around him to be able to accomplish that task.
And now he said, I'm going to put Elon in charge of this. And he did. And now we're finding out all the crazy spending that we're doing. I saw a Republican speaking on C-SPAN, which, by the way, C-SPAN's ratings have got to be just outrageously high. Their TikTok page gets millions of views. If you need to turn the heater back on, you can.
I'm good.
Okay. But like it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me the amount of views. It's amazing to me the amount of viewership that they're getting. Also the production value that they're doing with no commentary. They're just showing it.
I mean,
And I guess, and maybe it's always been there, and I guess maybe I'm just hasn't been tuned in enough, but I wish I could remember who it was, is literally just showing like, okay, we just saved $50 billion. We just bought us 7 hours. We saved $180 billion. We bought us 4 days.
right.
And it's like, holy cow.
That's how much money it is.
That's how much money it is. And that's the other thing too. Like, I don't think we can fully grasp, at least I can't. Right. I do jobs like for little to nothing, I guess, compared to what it was. Right. And so like, to me, $100 is a lot of money. Right. To me, $1,000 is a lot of money. To me, $20,000 is potentially life changing for our family. So when we are talking about billions and billions of dollars, it's so much money. I can't even wrap my brain around it.
The OMB came out last week and said, now again, the OMB they're pretty accurate, but they're also, if it's doom and gloom, they're going to get there faster than is probably the case. But they said next year, by 2026, the United States will be on a trajectory with its debt and the way they described it was, we'll be on a trajectory that is like too late to turn around.
Right. I saw that.
Like by next year, the debt will be so large and the interest on the debt will be so large that we'll be at the point of no return of heading towards insolvency. So that's the drastic measures that have to be taken. And so you bring up USAID, which has gotten probably, I would say, most of the news coverage this week on Doge cuts is USAID. And here's the thing. I like the idea of the United States being able to help people who need help in poor countries. I like that idea of being able to do that. I think anybody who knows anything would say all of that USAID money was definitely not going to people to help them.
Oh, for sure.
Kickbacks all along the way, and a very small percentage of it. I would say definitely less than half, and that's me spitballing. I don't have numbers on that. At least less than half, if not a quarter of that money.
I was about to say, I think you're being generous.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Like I'm being very generous by saying just less than half. It's probably closer to 20% if I really tell you how I really feel. was actually making it to actually help people. So when they say, well, Trump is cutting off money to third world countries, yes, that's true. Cutting off a ton of waste and a ton of padding pockets and kickbacks along the way also. And the other bottom line is say I lose my job. Our giving and our extra money that we have to give to other people is going to come second to me providing food and electricity for my family. And that's the way our country has to begin to operate. The OMB just said after next year, we're on the path, a point of no return to insolvency. So, yes, I think it's a great idea for the U.S. to be able to help poor countries, but we are actually in a position now, which is hard to believe because we think of ourselves as such a rich country, that we've got to take a step back and take care of our own for a minute before we can go out and help others.
And we have been saying this is going to be painful and it's going to be baby steps. And I was trying to explain to my students because they see this, and I applaud it. This is one thing that at least my group that I have currently, I'm not going to speak for all of my kids because they have not all been this informed, but they're asking some legitimate questions. Like a kid asked me today, and this is not my high kids. This is my middle of the road kids who are, I'm like, wait, what? What did you just ask me? Can you repeat that again? Because that was very intelligent. And you don't normally say things. You say 6'7". Do you know this? Nope. Oh God.
Please don't even tell
You're
me.
not missing anything. Or 6'9". I'm like, if you say 6'7" one more time. But anyways, the
joys of teaching high school.
Yeah, well, I think it's a middle school thing, but and apparently there's this new trend of moaning. Didn't know that was a thing.
Okay.
And it's odd.
I didn't need to know that.
Yeah, it's odd, Clint. It's beyond odd. But whatever. So he turns around and he says, like, he's like, Coach Smith, how can you explain to me what Doge is doing and how, in a way that I'll understand it? And I'm like, okay. So I've been like, I'm not sure. Let me think about that. And whenever my students ask a question like that, I'm always very hesitant because I try my best to not have any political sway one way or the other.
Sure.
So here's the best that I could come up with, and it made sense to him. Let's see if it makes sense to you. You know, like when you leave a Band-Aid on for too long. Like if you have, like I used to have to cover my tattoos. I don't know if you can see it, but like I used to have to cover my tattoo, right? And if I left it on all day long, my skin would start to get over it. It's literally like we left a full body Band-Aid on, and now we're having to slowly pull that thing off after it's been on there for 5 years. It's going to hurt, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to expose some things that are very uncomfortable. And there's going to be some people that are really, really hurt by this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be rough. And so I struggle with like, and he was like, okay, that makes sense, Coach Smith. Like, and that's the best imagery that I could really give to him that I could think. But then I hear, like later on that day, a kid shows me a TikTok. He's like, hey, is this true? And it's a lady talking about how at one point USAID donated money to the Clintons to pay for Chelsea Clinton's wedding and house to the tune of, I don't remember exactly what they said.
$84 million.
Millions of dollars. And we have people freezing in North Carolina.
And Elon tweeted out the flowchart map of how that money went through the different companies and corporations and LLCs to get there. Now, Chelsea came out yesterday and said it was an attack on her family, and she's proud of the work the Clinton Foundation has done. And you know what? I don't know what the Clinton Foundation has done. I bet there's one or two things they might have done that are okay and have helped out some people, and they spend a little money there. But if Chelsea Clinton ever listened to me, and she's not going to.
What if Chelsea Clinton like tweets that's Cigar Politico? That would be a great day for us.
That'd be a great day. But Meg, I guess. But what I wanted to say to Chelsea Clinton is like, listen, no one trusts your family. Like, you can come out here and just say, oh, this is an attack on us. No one believes you, even your friends. No one trusts that your family has handled things on the up and up. Like, Elon knows what he's doing by calling that out and tweeting out that full flow chart versus, I mean, he's tweeted out a bunch of other stuff, but to go through the trouble of saying all the companies that they traced it through, the money through, that it went to before it got to her personally, Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Well, and then the groups of people, Elizabeth Warren comes to mind, and she has been on my feed nonstop. I saw
she's one of the ones that's losing her mind.
And it's like, we can't have a 19-year-old in the Doge. And you caught his nickname, did you not? Yeah. Did you see his nickname? Okay, I don't want to get flagged on YouTube. If you don't know, look it up. But we can't have a 19-year-old. But then, like, it's so hypocritical because then they're like, well, children should be able to make gender decisions.
Right.
What are we doing? Like, we can't have a 19-year-old savant of economics, apparently. Like, apparently this kid is, like, really, really bright. Mm-hmm. And not just one of them, but there's, like, 10 of them.
He got a whole team.
And they're just... But again, are we shocked by this? I'm not.
No.
I'm not shocked by that part because he did the same thing to X and Twitter.
Yes.
He cut the fat, and I would imagine that now Twitter is making just as much money, if not more, than it did before.
I think it'll be interesting because Trump also said that cuts are coming to the Department of Defense. Democrats and liberals love cutting money to the DoD. They hate spending money on the DoD. So that one is going to be interesting if that gets any press at all, or if they just let it happen, because it's going to be very hard for them. I think Elon, he's smart. Trump is smart. I think they should take a dedicated entire week to only tweeting out about the cuts they're doing at the DoD just to see the response, because it's going to be really hard for Democrats to come out and be like, we can't do this, but they will. They'll come out and they'll say we're harming our national security, which is stuff they've said the exact opposite of for decades. But because Trump is doing it, like if Biden or any other Democrat had come out and said, we're going to trim the fat, we need to get on a budget as a country, oh my gosh, they'd be singing the praises. That's why this isn't going to work with the American people. Like, eventually people are going to see through it. They see the country needs to trim fat. We have a debt problem with our country, with our U.S. government debt. I think, and I have hope, and I have faith that the people are going to see through that, and in general are not going to follow all this BS that's coming from the Democrats right now, because it just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I think there's so many
Elon
people.
said that in the Oval Office today with his kid climbing all over him. He said, we found people at the Social Security Administration was sending checks to they're 150 years old. He said, do you, in his like South African autistic voice, is like, do you know anyone who's 150? I sure don't. And Trump just like laughs over there sitting at the Resolute desk, you know. It was,
well, and
you know, like how do you look at that and be like, stop that? You know, like those are literally just wasteful payments going out.
Yeah. And it's so much. It's so much to even comprehend. It's so much. And it's like, how do you even begin to, you have to have a person like Elon and Trump in this exact moment. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make a statement for myself. This is where I believe in divine intervention, because like, if let's just say somehow Biden was able to run for election,
stayed in and won,
I think he wins.
I don't know.
It's closer. I'll say that.
It is closer.
It is closer.
And there wasn't a lot of room for it to be closer.
And
so
if he wins,
does Scranton Joe pick up Pennsylvania and change the landscape?
I don't know. That's terrifying.
Yes.
Because we're not having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
We're hearing another $100 billion sent to here, another $100 billion sent to here. We're definitely not getting.
We're not even hearing about it. Like all this stuff we didn't know about.
Yeah, it's just continuing down the same path, and we obviously could not and cannot continue down this path. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about investments. Did you see that Japan has committed to $1 trillion in investments through the natural gas? So apparently they approached Canada, Japan, Germany, and one other European country. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, and I didn't put it in the notes. Both offered to build the pipelines to get the natural gas from the east side of Canada to the west side of Canada. And Trudeau said no. It's too environmentally dangerous for us. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Which, again, Trudeau doing Trudeau things.
Yeah.
Okay.
For how much longer?
What do you mean?
Is he still there? He resigned.
This was in 2023.
Okay.
That the Japanese and the Germans approached him. So Trump gets elected. Who does he call? He calls allies. And he says, hey, we need some money. Can you help us out? And the Japanese are like, yes, we need liquid gas. Mm-hmm. And we'll contribute $1 trillion to the infrastructure as a forward payment to this. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with that $1 trillion. I don't know enough about the movements of natural liquid gas in our country to be able to even really have that conversation. I know there's a big refinery in South Texas, in Houston and San Antonio, or Houston and in the Bay, in the Gulf of America.
Gulf of America.
But it was interesting to me that as he's sitting as Trump is sitting with the Prime Minister of Japan, he is the Japanese Prime Minister is awestruck by Trump. He's like, I saw him on TV, and this is obviously coming through his translator, and Trump's just sitting there going, like, just nodding his head a little bit more, like, yep, I know, we got to have this. And it was just an infrastructure thing that seems minor, but long term is going to be huge for America, because that's another export.
Yes.
And here's what we have to remember, and we have not had this conversation, I don't think. We have got to start exporting things. Mm-hmm. We cannot just, if we really want to make America great again, if that's really his mantra, we've got to start exporting things. We cannot continually just import. And that's so important. And this is a big step, I believe, in the investment of the infrastructure of the United States. Because if we're going to drill, baby, drill, we have to send it to somebody. Mm-hmm. It can't just be manufactured and put into our reserves, but we have to do something with it. Also, did you see, while we're talking about imports and exports, did you see that?
I did see that.
Zelensky came to the table with rare earth minerals.
Oh,
that was yesterday. Or what day is it today? Today's Tuesday. That was Saturday. Okay. He came to the table and said, "Okay, let's negotiate. We need protection from the Russians.
Yeah.
We now see that you're probably not going to continue to protect us. We will offer you rare earth minerals,
right,
as an offer of protection."
Which makes sense.
It hasn't gone anywhere as of yet, but that's a step. Mm-hmm. Another step.
That's an area where, you talk about foreign aid, sending money outside of the United States, not getting something back for, like, all the money that was sent to Ukraine under the Biden administration. What did we get for that besides Hunter and his allies getting richer?
Yeah.
Even if you don't believe that, what did we get for that? Now, Trump, the master negotiator, has something on the table. I was just reading a little bit about that Japan thing because I didn't see that. But that is, I have a couple thoughts, like the jobs that's going to create just to construct the pipeline. But when you think about jobs, people who normally come out against pipelines are the Teamsters, because the more pipelines you have, the fewer trucks you need.
Right.
So it'll be interesting because the head of the Teamsters came to the RNC and spoke, for Trump. So it'll be interesting.
Okay. But I know a little bit about that, though.
Yeah,
because
you did trucking.
Yeah. You have to, there's a certain distance. We did not do gasoline or liquefied natural gas, but we did move liquid. Solvent. Okay. And you can only move that for so long. So it can only be, a lot of that stuff that's flammable like that, or chemicals like that, can only be inside that trailer for so long. Mm-hmm. Some of them can be in there hours. Some of them can be in there days. So, like, if you put, like, let's say, for example, the solvents that we were moving from Houston across the border up into Ontario, it was only allowed to be in that for 72 hours. At some point, I'll tell the trucking story about what happened one time when we got to the border and we had almost a catastrophe. And it was corroding the barrels, and it was leaking out onto the ground. And because of what happened, the driver couldn't get to it. And we had long story short, driver got into it with another driver. He was leaving Houston. He got into an interaction with a driver in Oklahoma City. They chased each other all the way to the border. Someone gets murdered at the border in Detroit. And here I am. The truck left Houston in a team truck, so two drivers, leaves Houston, going to Detroit, gets the border patrol, stops it because obviously it's a crime scene now. Mm-hmm. And I have until Monday at 4:00 to get that off that trailer. And it almost didn't happen. Now, this is like a chemical, so it's not like a natural gas where it was going to explode, but it could have been really, really, really bad.
No, people don't want chemicals spilling out everywhere either.
And this is not the type of chemical you just want everywhere.
Yeah.
So natural gas, gasoline, the same concept. You do not want that stuff just sitting in a trailer for a long period of time. So the best way to transport it is either one, pressurized rail cars, or the pipeline. And you got to have pipelines. You just got to. And we do a good job of building them.
Yeah. You just wonder if people like in Canada see that and will see America do that, the jobs it creates, the future economic benefit of the pipeline, and say, our guy said no to that. It's like U.S. Steel is about to go under, but now it's going to be purchased by Japanese, which was blocked by Biden under national security concerns, basically saying we can't have a foreign company controlling
A U.S.
U.S. company. But here's the thing. If it really hits the fan, and listen, I'm not speaking from any point of reference. I'm just telling you what I think. We're still making steel here. It's just owned by a Japanese parent company.
Correct.
If it really hits the fan and like we're at odds with Japan and Japan's like, we're not going to make steel for you. Yeah, we're still going to make steel there.
Yeah.
We're going to roll some tanks into Pittsburgh, wherever it's at. And
Right.
we're going to still make steel that we need for the war effort. Like no matter what people in Japan say.
think.
So
Correct.
Yeah, I just think he didn't want to do it. But Biden's gone. So then that was an executive order and that's dead now too. So Trump said he's going to let the purchase go through, which I think is a good thing. He said he didn't want U.S. Steel to be bought, but being bought is better than the company going under, and you're faced with a zero-sum type of decision there.
Well, and that's two things that we've talked about, both the investment by the Japanese in natural gas and then in steel, that we've seen that we haven't seen in a very long time. And even from just our own government investing in our own thing. I saw yesterday or this past weekend that now it's come out that the Obama's solar.
Yes. Finally shut down.
It's finally shut down. Well, solar is great, but it's not the end all be all, just like wind wasn't.
Right.
It's so expensive to build those wind towers.
Yes.
It's so expensive.
The carbon footprint to build a windmill does not offset. It doesn't the wind power doesn't offset the carbon footprint just to build it.
Right.
It's a net loss when you consider carbon footprint, which is what the environmentalists consider. So, like, speaking truth, like letting people know, like, oh, wind power, it's so clean, it's just the wind. It's like, no, actually building those things and transmitting that electricity is a bigger carbon footprint than it would have been just regular electricity from turbines.
Right. It's so expensive to transport those big
and they break
propellers, and then there's not even a way to recycle them. It's so expensive to recycle them, so you just leave them basically.
Trump said, and they're ugly. Trump thinks. I want to back up to my. There's a couple things in banking. And I was in Austin this week with a bunch of bank leaders. And
pause. Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
So you have a bunch of acronyms right here, and I have no idea what any of those things.
So
I know you are, but like education is the same way. You're like, we got this IEP for the EPA for this 504, and then they go read this thing, and the poor parents are like, what does any of that mean? And all the teachers are like, yep, that sounds good.
I was talking with a new client yesterday, and I actually gave them a little card that I'd printed because I said, I'm going to be shooting a lot of acronyms, and I'm going to try to say what all these mean each time, but eventually I'm going to stop because it's just easier there's a ton of acronyms in every industry. And so there's the federal regulatory agencies that oversee banking.
Okay.
So
is that the FIAA?
No. So you basically have we have three branches. Credit unions have their own. That's NCUA, National Credit Union Administration.
Okay.
In banking, you have two wings of it. If you have a bank that says something National Bank or something Bank NA, which stands for National Association, that bank is regulated by the OCC, which is the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. That's their regulatory body. This is all going to have meaning here in a second. And then if it's a state bank, it's regulated by that state's banking authority, which in Texas is the Texas Department of Banking, but you have departments of banking in every state, and the FDIC and Federal Reserve. So when you have examiners coming in to examine a bank and do their regulatory exam and make sure everything's on the up and up, called the safety and soundness exam, their primary regulator is who performs that exam. So again, you're driving past a bank, it's such and such national bank, or it's such and such a bank NA. The OCC is their primary regulator. If it's a state bank, such and state bank, whatever, the State Department of Banking and FDIC and Federal Reserve, FRB, are their primary regulator. When we had the housing crisis of 2008, and so that happened in 2008, 2009, as Bush was leaving office and Obama was coming into office. That's when you had TARP and all the things. You had all the houses in Florida being foreclosed on. Mm-hmm. You had what they called the ninja loans, the no income, no assets, no job loans.
I got one of those, by the way.
Yeah. So you had all that going on. In 2014, you had new laws, new rules come down and take effect. It was the Dodd-Frank Act. Barney Frank and Chris Dodd passed. They were the primary sponsors of the law. One of those things was that tried to fix the ninja loans was a thing called a QM, which is a qualified mortgage, meaning you got to actually show some income up to a certain percentage. Your debt ratio can only be a certain amount.
Right.
And they put kind of some limits. And I don't have any issue with that. Like what the qualified mortgage, the QM requirements are, I think people should have that if they're going to buy a house.
Agreed.
Okay. So I got no issue with that. But it created a new agency also called the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And so Elon tweeted a couple days ago.
Pause.
Yeah.
CFPB.
Yeah.
Okay.
Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Lovely name. Sounds wonderful because consumers want their finances protected. So that's been around since Obama's time. So it's pretty new, but it's a brand new regulatory body. And for the most part, that's the reason I talked about the regulatory bodies. The CFPB, for the most part, only heavily regulates large banks. So they'll let the other primary regulators come in and do their job. But for the really big ones, the CFPB is also regulating. What they also do that's been detrimental is they have rulemaking authority. And so they set up tons and tons and tons of rules and added red tape and regulation over and above, over the top, that really hindered banks and honestly capital being able to go out to businesses and people and consumers to be able to run their lives and grow their businesses. For example, Rule 1071 has gotten a lot of press because it was supposed to take effect this year. Like they'll make a rule, it sits there for a couple of years, they take comments, and then it finally has an effective date. And they usually tier it in. The larger banks that have a bigger capacity to have people on staff to implement rules get it first, and then all the way down to eventually the small banks have to implement it as well. So 1071 is going to take effect, I believe, in June of this year. And it's a CFPB rule. It is the rule that says when a bank makes a loan to a small business, they have to collect data on the race of that person, their sex, and also their LGBTQ status. So it required banks on their application to find out basically if somebody's gay or not.
That doesn't seem legal.
That seems like overreach. That's what I'm talking about. That's just one example of some of the overreach of the CFPB. So Elon tweeted on Sunday, CFPB RIP.
Okay, I saw that, but I had no idea what
that's what he was talking about. Is like, this agency is gone. It's dead. We're getting rid of it. They shut it down for a week and said, y'all work from home. Nobody come into the offices. Don't even try to show up here. And so originally Trump had Bessent, the confirmed Treasury Secretary, head it. Now it's the OMB head, Vaught, who is now going to be the acting director of the CFPB. And I don't know if it's going to have its own director, because I think the idea is to get rid of it. The issue is it was created by law. So I know there's going to be some additional efforts, but Vaught already told the Treasury Department, don't send us our money this month. Like, we don't want it. Like, whatever their allocation of funding is, don't send it. So they may not be able to get rid of it because it was an agency created by law. Trump may not be able to do that without congressional action. I'm not sure the legality of that. But it does appear that they told everybody to go home and they're not going to fund it. And he did. Vaught and Besant said before Vaught told him all of your enforcement actions, all of your current exams that you have going on in banks, all of the regulatory actions you're bringing against banks right now, stop all of it. They have put a halt on all CFPB actions. So basically, they've taken that agency, which is really acted. Michael Hsu was the former director who resigned after being asked to resign, but he served in the Biden administration over the CFPB. He was very, very much an activist for regulation. So they had a lot of regulatory actions going out against banks. And, you know, you kind of want to step back and say, well, I want somebody looking at the banks. Trust me.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Trust me, as somebody who audits banks for a living, there's really plenty.
Okay.
Like the banks that do the bad things have been getting caught for years doing the bad things, and they're still going to get caught doing the bad things.
Then, okay, I don't understand. Hold on. I follow what you're saying, but I'm not educated in that world. Okay, so here's where my brain goes. When we say we're doing less regulation with people's money, but then you answered my question. So then how does a bank, like what happened with the crypto stuff a couple of months ago, or maybe it's been a year or two ago, how does something like that happen? You see what you know what I'm talking
Silicon Valley?
No.
Yeah, the bank failures in
No.
2023?
No. Yes.
Republic Bank and Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes.
You know what's really interesting about that? 30 seconds on this. The big bank regulation guy, Barney Frank, you know, who his name is on the Dodd-Frank bill that created the CFPB and all these new regulations.
Okay.
He was on the board of Republic Bank and Signature Bank that went under, and he supported the threshold of that regulation being increased to $250 billion from $50 billion. So it was, banks are regulated at $50 billion, and he supported, after being someone who, when he served as a senator or served in Congress, supported more regulation. Once he got on the board of a bank, supported less. But that's a very specific, nothing.
So what is the limit a bank can lend out without the insurance covering it? Does that make sense?
Insurance covers deposits, not loans.
Oh.
So, and
okay.
it's still $250,000.
Okay. So anything above $250,000, if you have 15 accounts at $250,000 and that bank goes under, you get all 15 accounts.
Not exactly.
Oh.
It's not at the account level.
Oh.
That's another ball of wax we could talk an entire podcast about. But
it sounds very complicated.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, about insured deposits, which came up whenever that happened.
That's why I was asking.
It was like the FDIC bailed them out. Understand this. The FDIC gets assessments from banks, not taxpayer money.
Oh.
So when they bailed out Silicon Valley and made all their depositors whole, that came from other banks. And all of the banks, because every bank is FDIC, right? You see the little gold signs when you walk in.
Correct.
They all pay assessments semi-annually to the FDIC. Those assessments went up after Silicon Valley, Republic, and Signature.
I did not know that.
Because they took a lot of money out to make depositors whole.
But it was only up to $250,000.
That's all they have to do. But they actually made them completely whole.
Oh.
Because you had companies like Roku, for example, you know, the streaming service.
Correct.
Who had their payroll account there, obviously more than $250,000 in that account. And if they weren't made whole, they weren't able to pay all their employees. So you have issues like that where a whole bunch of just working people aren't going to get their paychecks if they don't step in and do something about it. So I don't have a problem with that. But in general, you know, when a bank goes under, it's because they are taking losses on their assets. Most of the time, that is loans with Silicon Valley and these other banks. It was actually, they had a liquidity crisis, and we are getting into the weeds, but I'll finish it in 1 minute. What happened with those banks is...
Hold on, pause. But they had what kind of a crisis?
Liquidity.
Oh, a liquidity crisis. Okay.
Banks lend out money from deposits. So you deposit money at the bank, they lend that out. You watch It's a Wonderful Life, and he stands up on top of the teller. That's a Christmas movie, right? And he stands up on the teller counter, And he says, well, I can't give you your money. Your money's over there in Mr. Johnson, whatever's house, because we lent your money to help him build a house. Like,
correct.
That's, in a nutshell, that is asset liability management and how banks function and how they work. That is you can watch him give that speech and you can understand everything you need to know about banking and how it works.
Okay.
So what happened is they lost their liquidity to be able to make those loans. There was a run on the bank, fueled a lot by social media and Twitter, where people came and, not Roku, but other companies and other people came and took all their money out because they thought the bank was about to go under because it started getting tweeted that the bank was in trouble and had a liquidity crisis.
Right.
Well, then that just made their liquidity crisis worse. So banks have funding sources. Deposits are a good one, but they also could go sell investments and get money. Okay. And that's what they had to do. But the problem is, think about what was happening in the market in 2023.
Right.
They sold a bunch of those investments at a loss, which made things even worse. And that just was the snowball effect that caused those 3 banks to go under. Very specific to the management of those banks and very specific to the type of lending that they were doing. I follow a bunch of accounting groups, which makes sense. Like you follow a bunch of teacher groups on socials.
Correct.
And there's a shirt that I really want to get. I got my Gulf of America shirt. I should get this shirt also. But it has the SVB, Silicon Valley Bank logo. And it was like risk manager of the year, because their risk management stunk.
It was so bad. Yeah.
That was the issue. Was
that would be a great bit. And I love t-shirts that not very many people would get, but the person that got it is your people.
Yeah, that's right. If somebody looks at it and laughs, I'm like, you do what I do. So that's what happened there. Very specific. Like the banks weren't in trouble, but there was some failure there with the FDIC, who regulated those banks, writing in reports like, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. And then eventually it all happens.
This is really not good.
So, but here's the thing. If you're concerned about the CFPB going away, the CFPB existed in full force and those banks were big enough to be regulated by the CFPB, and they still didn't catch it because the CFPB was more concerned about requiring you to ask if somebody's gay on a loan application. That's what I mean by the CFPB going away completely is okay, because that's what they were concerned with. They were putting stupid stuff like that into rules instead of things that could actually prevent, disasters like what happened. Their focus was incorrect. Same with the USAID stuff.
I was about to say, and how many more of those groups that are like that, these bureaus that are in the same boat, they're so focused on things that don't matter. Yeah,
they're funding, instead of actually funding food for children or water pumps or wells for children, which they send some money to. And that's what you're going to continue to hear about in the coming weeks that have been turned off because of USAID. They're also funding, drag shows in Lebanon or the Philippines or whatever. Like that's the junk. And so the CFPB was out there pushing the junk.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So get rid of it.
And I think, again, there's going to be more and more of that coming out.
Yeah.
And it just... And while we're talking about federal agencies, did you see 60,000 took the buyout? 60,000 employees. But then they were saying that when they told them that they had to come back in, that there wasn't enough parking for some of the federal agencies, and it was taking hours upon hours to get into the places where they were trying to work.
The return to office?
Yeah, the return to office stuff. And I'm sympathetic to the cause because, like, a lot of that stuff, it's like we've talked about before, working from home. Some of these people could truly work from home and be very, very efficient. But I think the point was that they were trying to get to, like, if you can do your job from home, but you can also do it from here too.
Yeah.
And we need people to, like, if we're going to be paying you, people need to see people going to work. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, and some jobs are easier to work from home and you can regulate that work actually gets done. For example, in accounting, and I hate to just keep bringing up me, but this is what I know the most about. We have to track our hours that we spend on client time. So when I'm at work every day, yes, I'm a salaried employee, but I'm supposed to do it every day. I have to do it every week. I have to put in, like, I work this many hours doing this for this client and doing this for this client. I spent this much time, like, doing marketing and business development and not working on a client. Like, you have to track all of that time.
Right.
So, you're putting all of that in. So it's real easy for us to tell if someone's not getting their work done because we see their timesheet at the end of the week and we're like, you put 20 hours to this job, nothing's done. So it's a pretty easy conversation. Yeah. We can work from home and we still have to get work done because there's people, it's really easy to check up. If you've got a job where that's not the case, like you're just kind of processing some applications or something and nobody's really tracking what you're doing or like your output, then that's somebody could just go home and watch TV and sleep all day and still pull a check. So I think that's some of the pushback is in some of these federal agencies, you have too many employees to do the job that's required to be done. So people aren't actually having to work, like go in, like put their time in and get the work done. So we'll see what happens with that.
I was talking to somebody yesterday that works 3 days on, 2 days off.
Yeah.
And they were telling me, they were like, man, instead of doing 3 days of 12 or 13 hours, I'm going to have to figure out a way to stretch it to 8 hours for 5 days a week, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know, if you can get your work done in 3 days, but again, then it goes back to accountability.
Right.
And how can you account for that?
Yep.
And they're a truthful person. They're doing their job. They obviously are very good at what they do.
Yeah.
But they were like, man, it just sucks because I'm going to have to figure out a way how to work 8 hours a day for 5 days. And really I could get everything done in 3,
Right.
you know? And if I need to go in, I could go in on a Thursday or a Friday, but you know, they are efficient enough that they can do that. So it kind of sucks for people like that, but I can't help but wonder if that's a minority.
I'm sure it is.
Because a lot of people are just point blank lazy.
Right.
I mean, I see that in my profession too. Like
Doing the bare minimum.
yeah, just to get by.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I did see too, Fetterman talked a little bit about the Democratic Party this week. They're in the primary currency of scolding and shaming. That was his statement of the week. And I think that's just politics too. But I also think that like this U.S. aid has really shined. And I know that's kind of been the topic of conversation quite a bit tonight, but that seems to be where we're focusing a lot of our energy on. And hopping into education again, because that's what I know best. The more that I research what the Department of Education does, the more I'm leaning to the less that we need it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking my job, right? I teach a classroom of 150 kids. Okay. What am I going to lose or gain by the Department of Education going away? Maybe some funding for special education students.
I think I don't know.
But they don't write curriculum.
Yeah.
They don't write our exams. They regulate certain aspects within the special education in 504 world, which, okay, we need those things. Okay, but the amount of money that we spend seems to, like, can we not just send that to the states?
I think what did it for me early on was I did not realize it was a creation of the Carter administration. I kind of thought it had been around a little longer than that.
It had not.
So it came around to Carter administration, and we were close to the top, if not number one in education before it was created, and now we're close to the end and last as far as rankings worldwide in education. So you created a Department of Education, and we got worse, much worse. And now you're fighting and saying we have to have it. We don't.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, like,
we certainly don't have to have it in the form that it's currently in.
and I think that that's going to be the case for a lot of things that we're looking at. Like, okay, we don't necessarily have to get rid of the entire thing, but let's look at where we're failing, fix that,
Right.
and then go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And go to the next thing and go to the next thing. And I think that, like you mentioned the DOD a while ago, like Hegseth said today, like there is no plans of moving our troops anywhere in the globe. Like our footprint is secure at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be budget cuts. There won't be things that we change because there needs to be some change. But it'll be very interesting as they start to defund a lot of these programs and like your bureau that you just talked about, like as we start to see those things start to decrease in funding.
I think the CFPB, what I saw from the Vought quote was the allowance or funding appropriation they were going to get this month was around $716 million. So take that out.
Just this month?
Yeah, so that's an annual budget of about $8.5 billion.
Oh God, that's a lot of money.
Kind of, but then
I know it's not. I know it's not a lot of money, but
with a $36 trillion debt.
So a trillion is 1,000 billions, right?
Yeah.
So we have 300,000 billions. Is that right?
360.
360,000 billions. Folks, that's a lot of money. And I don't even know how to wrap my brain around that.
You know, I posted a meme that said,
I saw that.
you know what I'm talking about? We need to take a $37 trillion bet on Saquon to hit the over. Well, I'm sure glad they did.
Glad we didn't.
Then we would have been at $74 trillion.
$74 trillion, and we were in trouble.
Then it's like, all right, we're defaulting. Everybody stock up on the canned goods. Grab your rifles, and it's going to get a little hairy here for a minute.
Yeah.
China's going to come looking for that money.
But you know what? We're getting close to our wrap up time. But you know, the Chinese are in trouble too.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why they're kind of, hey, let's let the waters calm before we really start talking about a whole lot of tariffs on each other, Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
Can we please let's just tap the brakes there just a little bit.
Yeah, I think we'll hear more from them, but we haven't yet. So,
and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg for that sliver of the conversation. I mean, Canada and Mexico and Panama have all three said, okay, we'll step to the negotiating table, we'll invest, we'll do all those things, and I think that's a good thing. I'm just kind of wrapping up a little bit on Senate Bill 2. It did pass the Senate, which we both thought it would. They came out yesterday and kind of redefined what they're looking for. One of them, there's 4 or 5 different points. This is in the Texas Tribune. I tweeted it out, or I put it on our Facebook page too. The educational issues that they're looking at. The first one was teacher pay, school funding, obviously. One of the things that I found interesting is they kind of pinned this article directly on the Democrat and the Republicans who are more in the middles that did away with the vouchers in 2023. And there was apparently $7 billion earmarked for teacher raises. I'm all for it. I'm here for it. We'll see how it goes from there. Also, I did not know this, that they rank 30th. The state ranks 30th in teacher pay. The average teacher salary is
that's crazy for the state of Texas.
$60,000.
Who has to raise the cap on our rainy day fund?
Because we have too much money.
Because we have too much money in our savings account, but we rank 30th in paying teachers.
So
think about that.
Teacher preparation was the next thing that they talked about, and averaging that, as I sat in a teacher training yesterday for a long time. Here's my thought on that. Teachers who have been in the field for long enough are very prepared. We're very prepared. However, we are not prepared always in the subject that we're in. Let me explain. So I'm a part of this teaching U.S. history to students association, and it's not like a union, but you go as affiliation, you go and they send you material and you look at it, and they go and you send a lecture series. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. They teach me stuff every day. Every time I go to one of those things, it's phenomenal for me, because as a history teacher, there are just things I don't know. Like I don't know every part of history that I'm teaching. You can't know it all.
Right.
You can't. You could read and you still just won't know every aspect of what we're talking about. And so I do think that we could be better prepared in those lines of work. Now, how to do Bloom's taxonomy and how to prepare a student to learn, I can do all that. When it comes to content, though, there's areas where I just don't know. Yeah. And so I'm just not necessarily shooting from the hip, but I have to do a little bit of research before I'm trying to teach the student about the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution. That would be an area where I could buy into that. Okay, yeah, I could see that. The other thing it talks about is special education. The way that they fund special education is how long a student is in a certain area. Okay. So if they're in this classroom for 45 minutes and they get 45 minutes of instruction from a special education, there's funding for that. And then if they go to a different location, the funding may be pulled based on where they are, based on the amount of students. That's a very oversimplified version of that. They're looking at breaking that up into doing more of a 2-tiered system. On the surface, without doing a ton of research on what they're talking about, it sounds like it would work. Yeah. And it sounds like that would be beneficial to both the districts and the student. So that was something that was also brought up. They're also talking about doing away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here nor there for me. Most districts that I work with seem to be doing okay with that. My brother-in-law brings that up to me quite a bit. Like, did you see this tweet of this teacher who's doing this? Yeah, that teacher was also fired 3 days later. Yeah, there's bad apples, just like in every profession. We've talked about that before. Career training, and then teachers are well trained prior to becoming into the classroom, but it's just like with any other job. There's a little bit of on-the-job training too. Like you could take the professional accountant, put him in a classroom, and they would fail miserably without any training. Just like if you were to take a professional teacher and putting in an accounting firm, it would take me a little while to figure it out. Okay.
Well, and aside to that is you can take the accounting student straight out of college. They have no idea how to do what I do.
Right.
You got to go to college and learn it and pass the big test and get the letters after your name. But what you learn about auditing or, in college is not how we actually do it.
The last thing that I found interesting, and that's the same for teachers. I want to close that point because it's the same for teachers. I mean, you take a second-year teacher is going to be better than a first-year teacher. A first-year teacher is going to be better than the first-day teacher.
And they're going to learn from the veteran teachers around them.
Exactly.
Like classroom management things.
The problem that we're having, though, is veteran teachers are leaving.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest point that we're not that I haven't seen so far is, okay, teachers are capped at 25 years. They make no more money after 25 years. The state, now individual districts may pay more up to 30, but you think about that, right? You're like, oh, well, 30 years in the education world is a lot. Not when you're 20 when you get in. And you're only 50. And you can't retire till you're 62. So you capped yourself out for 12 years. The teacher can't do that. They can't, and then you can't even earn more to your retirement. That's a whole nother conversation for the day. But this is my last point. There's also been a big push for disciplinary action of students. When we were in school, we went and we kind of got the pendulum swing to where we're like, oh, it's okay. We're going to give you a snack and let you cool off. Now, I don't believe in corporal punishment for students at a school.
Yeah.
I don't want someone spanking my children. I have my administrator license. I don't ever want to hit someone else's child. Is there a place for it in education? I'm not fully developed. My opinion hasn't fully been developed on that yet. However, if your student is harming someone, or if your student is verbally assaulting someone, or if your student is posting about someone on social media, the district is very limited on what they can do. Unless they have local policies, which some do, it's still very, very difficult to implement because of the state rules and the state regulations. Okay, I'm not saying that we should go back to corporal punishment because I don't believe that's the answer to the problem. But we have to make it a burden on the parent.
Yes.
And so if
that's going to be a priority.
That's where I'm going with this. If you hit the parent's pocketbook and you burden them, like your kid can't be here. If you don't come pick up your kid, our SRO is taking them to your home or taking them to your job, period. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. You have to figure it out. And that if that happens and when that happens, that seems like that's the pendulum swing that we're going towards. That's gonna cause that's gonna fix a lot of the issues. Okay. Now you're not gonna fix all of them.
Right.
Okay. And there's always gonna be, just like with what I said a while ago, there's always gonna be bad apples. But if you're burdening the parent with their own child, that fixes a lot of issues. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the kid that's just had a bad day. That's not what I'm talking about.
No.
I'm talking about the kid who is habitually late to school, is an absentee issue, who does not want to be there.
Or being disruptive, being violent.
And that too, but then also the kid who just doesn't care. And that's part of the other thing they talked about is like making sure that that they're doing the on the job training. So like HVAC, welding, plumbing, construction. The problem that I have with that is not that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. However, if the school district doesn't have the money to invest in those programs, because it does take money. An automotive program, think about just all the things that you had to do as a kid. I mean, motor oil, like you're changing the oil. Well, they have to invest in that.
Right.
They have to invest in a shop, because a lot of schools that aren't being newly built don't have those things.
Right.
They have to invest, like our school, when they built an automotive paint shop.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the paint is expensive.
The first high school that Brittany did her student teaching at, in Dallas had an aircraft mechanic program. So they had airplanes in hangars at the high school, and they're working on engines.
Correct.
They're working on aircraft, and that's
Right.
And those kids could leave straight out of high school and go be an aircraft mechanic.
But let's think about this. If they take the voucher money and they invest that $10,000 and they take that, I saw going around Facebook, I don't know if you saw it or not, like this is the amount of money if a big voucher program takes place. This is how much money it pulls from the. So I was talking to our maintenance guy the other day, and he was like, "Man, it costs $4,000 just to replace the air filters in our schools. $4,000." Now, I don't know how often they have to replace those. I mean, I replace mine in my house every other month. So if they're having to do that, that's $4,000 a couple of times a year. Or in that paint booth that we have, those filters are like $900. I don't know if that's how much the district pays for them, but that money
those
has to
CTE
come from
programs,
somewhere.
Like, they cost money. But I had the opportunity, and this is just fun things that I get to do on my job, to sit down and hear from Speaker of the House Dustin Burrows this week. And it was interesting because we were there for banking. That's what I do. But to hear him talk about education, and that was one of his priorities, was CTE, because he said not everyone is going straight to college, and some people are going straight into the career field, and we need to support them as well. And also another thing he said that struck me is the number one reason teachers leave the field is not because of pay, but it's because of classroom management.
Yeah.
And I was like, I believe you, because I'm married to a teacher, and I'm just really excited to hear the Speaker of the Texas House acknowledge and say that yes, we have a pay problem, and yes, we are going to address that this session. But there's also some other things we can do. Classroom management, taking the shackles off of some of the teachers to be able to run their classrooms, and then also CTE programs and funding those in schools. So we'll see when we actually get a bill, and we'll talk about it. Probably have to do another bonus episode to really do a deep dive on it. But
those are fun.
It was good to hear it, and I'm excited to see where it might go.
And depending on the day, depends on how I feel.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know what's going to come out, and it'll just be interesting to see how it goes. I'm a little more positive today than I was maybe last week.
Sure.
It seems to have been gaining some ground. Some of the conversations that you had, some of the posts that the Texas Tribune have done seem to be trending in a direction of that. Also, the Abbott going and visiting the Christian charter school. Did you see that?
Yeah. He's done that a few times.
He's done that a few times. And here's my point to that. Why don't you go visit a public school?
Exactly right.
Why not? Why those things are happening at public schools too.
And that's just the like, whenever you say and I say that it feels like an attack on your profession, that's the visible part of that. Is you have the governor of Texas who is only visiting charter schools right now, private schools, not actually going to public schools, like leaving them in the dust. And it shows in that bill that the Senate passed.
Correct.
About what they think about public schools.
And just, if you go to any public school on a Friday night, you'll see the effect that school has on a community.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a bad football team too.
Yeah.
Brother.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It still has I mean, even now, like, we're hosting playoff games at our school. And like last night we hosted one. I don't know exactly how many our gym holds, but it's a lot. And that place was packed, from the 90-year-old alumni to the little baby who's wearing the team colors.
Yep.
So those are things that we gotta continue to promote, but also gotta continue to think about that could potentially go away, because those things, like, the districts may not be able to afford to host a play or to go and to have a playoff game.
Yeah.
Because it costs money.
It costs money.
It costs money to pay the workers. It costs money to run the electricity. So those things it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, so as we'll continue to talk about it. I don't want to bore everybody every time, but I mean, it's very prevalent in what we're doing in our area of the United States. So any big plans this week?
No, still busy. CPA time, busy.
There's a chance for snow next Wednesday. Did you see that?
Really? I did not see that.
I'm excited.
I just know it got cold. It was like, I'm so busy right now, I'm not even looking at the weather, which is, as an old man, I normally do. I normally look at it, talk about it, think about it, complain about it. And I was like, it was warm, now it's cold again. I don't know what it's going to do tomorrow, but I haven't been paying attention.
As a track coach, I have to pay close attention to it because it's like, man, sometimes we can go outside, but now we have these cold weather policies. It kind of hurts us, which is not a bad thing. I mean, we really shouldn't be going outside if it feels like 12 degrees outside. So,
Yeah.
all right, man, have a good week.
You too.